Good afternoon, everybody, from good old RSA 2025. So I have a special guest today, Matt Eisner with the U.S. Department of Defense, CIO's office. So thank you for coming here. So we'd love to talk to today about DoD 8140 and just kind of explain a little bit about the process, a little bit about the myths, what's coming up, what's the future, and what should people do to implement. So, Matt, I guess to start off a little bit, if you want to give a little history about yourself.
Sure. First, thank you very much for having me. This is my first time at RSA conference. It is needless to say overwhelming, but such a wonderful conference and all of these great minds in cyber coming together. A lot of great briefs and things. So thank you very much for having me here. Look forward to the panel tomorrow and all the things that we can do. But for history, so my name is Matt Eisner, work in the Office of CIO for the Department of Defense in what we call the Workforce Innovation Directorate. My portfolio I look at is the program manager of 8140 policy series and the DCWF, Department of Defense Cyber Workforce Framework. In my past, I've worked about a decade over at Cyber Command, helping stand up a lot of the cyber mission teams and helping kind of bring that to the forefront. And before there, I was a signals person in working with NSA. So I've worked in this arena for many years. Love all the great work and all the people that are doing the job. So look forward to kind of working forward and growing it in the future.
So, a lot of people have heard the term 8140 from Department of Defense, but they still stand there and they go, I don't know what it means. Can you talk a little bit about what the mission and what the goals are?
Yeah. So 8140 is a policy series that gets to basically talent management of the workforce. It's standardized it across the board. It's one of those things that people need to take a breath with and understand it is a full area where we're just trying to standardize the work across the department. It has many different phases inside of it. The current one that you're seeing right now is the baseline foundation phase. It gets into basically making sure that people have the aptitude to understand cyber coming into the arena. The next phase, which everyone kind of does and gets a little question marks when they start looking through it, is the residential phase of 8140, which is the on-the-job training. It gets to the things that we do every day, making sure people are compliant, can do the job once they start touching our networks. And the final phase is the continuous professional development. These are one of those things where we're trying to make sure people don't become stagnant in the work they do. People understand that they can grow inside of their careers, how it looks inside of the frameworks and see how they can kind of maneuver through IT, cybersecurity, AI. All of those areas have connective tissue when you talk about the workforce. So we want to make sure that they give them the tools to be able to maneuver through it.
So, for the individuals, so I'm going to ask for the individuals and for the leaders,
Yes.
because people always say, hey, what's in it for me to be 8140 compliant? What's the advantages? How does it help my office? How does it help my team? So we'll start with the individual first, if you don't mind, and then we'll move on to the security team lead of like, why should I embrace this? Why is this a good thing for us?
Yeah, it's always a good question. I don't want to go with the hard line of you have to do it, but it's one of those big things with 8140. As I mentioned before, it's a talent management. It's you as a career professional inside of the department being able to advocate for yourself. You can get resources for training. You can get resources to grow your skill set. You can get resources to go to GX SANS courses, to CompTIA courses, all of the areas that you can grow inside of your profession and understand what you need to be able to do to kind of maneuver through those professional growths. So it's one of those big things, a tool not only for yourself to understand what you're supposed to be doing, but how you can grow inside of your overall career.
Which I think is really important because people don't, I think they hear about the requirement. I think they think it's scary, right?
Yes.
It's something I have to do. It's like anything else. When you ask people to do something, people are a little bit hesitant about it. And, being somebody in the certification marketplace, everybody's always a little bit scared sometimes about certifications.
Yep.
Just like I would if I went to the military schoolhouse or, there's just what happens if I don't succeed or, what happens, but it can help your career.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's something that's really important. I mean, I think the other important thing to note, and hopefully, is you're helping the mission of DoD. And as an employee, as a member of the troop, I like to think that's something very, very important to any individual that is a part of it.
No, it's a great thing. And people need to take kind of a little bit of a breath. It's not anything new inside this environment. You had a lot of understanding with 8570, which by the way is currently sunsetted. It no longer a requirement in the environment. When you look at 8140, we're just trying to understand the capabilities. We people talk about compliance. It's not a compliance drill. It's a readiness aspect. Our senior leaders want to understand the capability of what our workforces do, where they're at, what are their surge capabilities. Cyber is something that is a global domain. We got to make sure that we're ready to kind of work with or go against our adversary, making sure everything is defended. So we got to understand those capabilities.
Now, so if I head up a security team, so I'm going to take it from the individual now to the person who's managing the troops.
Yep.
What's their advantage? Why should they care about this?
So very good question. In that this is when you're looking at the old 8140 program aspect, it's not necessarily just one person understanding it. It's everyone from your HR professional, your hiring managers, your supervisors, and the individual themselves. It is all a team to be able to kind of identify, codify what is inside of your what we call JQRs, on the job training, your residential qualifications. The hiring managers and supervisors are the critical one because you know what your team needs to be able to do to meet the overall mission of your organization. So you need to be the ones that start it. It is the crucial aspect of being able to basically codify and tell the story to your senior leaders. Do I have enough people? Do I have enough resources? Do I have enough capability to be able to perform the mission? There's no way other than this to be able to tell that story. Data is key. It tells the all picture to our senior leaders. And there's only one aspect that you can do to be able to do that is identify them and then codify them.
So if it's fair to say, and hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn, you're in some ways for the leader, for the person that's heading up the security team, if they're looking saying, hey, I may be short of resources, your office, am I correct?
Yep.
Could be of some help to them.
Yeah.
And that's something I think that's really important that's not really talked about much.
Yeah.
Is that a
It's a fair assumption. And that's
Okay.
those because 8140 through the whole policy series, we put it into being able to report in manpower and personnel systems. So all of that data kind of put into a big system called Advana. It is reported at the highest level. If you as hiring managers, supervisors don't have access, please reach out to my team. We'll get you access. It will give you the snapshot of what your team's capabilities are. Then you're able to take that snapshot, take it to your senior leaders, and advocate for more resources. Do I need my people to get more training? Do I need to send them to more courses?
Sure.
Do I need more individuals to be able to execute my mission? Those pictures will be able to tell you that. And we're trying to give you that resource to be able to advocate for your story.
Now, I think it's very interesting because it's something that's you mentioned just a little bit ago that there's a report that's actually getting ready to go all the way to Capitol Hill. I didn't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, cyber is, as everyone knows, is a high visibility, talked about topic at this point. Everyone has kind of equity in it. And what we've been doing at the department in identifying our workforce, telling the story to our senior leaders has gotten a lot of movement. So now even our congressional staffers are aware of everything we're doing, and they wanted a kind of a snapshot from a report that we owe at the end of April, early May to the HASC to be able to tell them what does our cybersecurity workforce do right now.
Sure.
That story will probably be an annual report. It will start telling cybersecurity individuals, IT, AI, data, software engineering, everyone that's kind of inside of the BCWF. We're going to be able to tell that snapshot to not only our senior leaders in the department, but also our conventional staffers. That helps us from the department go after resources as well.
Yeah. So I think that's something really important for the people that head up the security teams, right? That's even important for the people out in the troops, right? As, hey, I want to be able to advance my career. I want to be able to move up the ranks. You're finding ways to be able to get them a path to be able to do that.
Yep.
And one thing, I know you mentioned it already, 8570 is dead. And I wanted to bring that up from the standpoint of, I believe that part's very true.
Yeah.
But what is the difference between 8570 and 8140? Because I think there's some confusion out there of where did one stop and where did one start? Because I think there's some pretty major differences
Yeah.
and some exciting things too.
There is.
So,
And 8570 told a little bit of a different story in that it focuses on the kind of grouping of technology management, levels 1, 2, and 3, identifying certifications and areas that kind of align.
so what's 1, 2, and 3? Just so
So if you had an IAT level information assurance technology, level 1, 2, and 3,
Yep.
were different tiers in proficiencies inside of 8570. You also had an IA manager. You also had a IA RA. There's a lot of different levels inside of it. The difference with 8140 is while that was a good baseline, it didn't tell the whole story of capability. It started and we were never really able to actually codify the work being done from the baseline, from what the people do on the day-to-day job.
Sure.
So what we've identified is the DCWF. It aligns to the NICE framework from a cybersecurity perspective. It has a lot of things where it tells you what work roles are, and it aligns it to knowledge and skills. Knowledge and skills are the baseline for everything everyone does. It aligns to curriculum and training and everything. It's basically a blueprint to be able to kind of identify what the capabilities are. So what 8140 did was it kind of took that baseline of what 8570 does and built upon it to really turn it into a full talent management program. Because it doesn't stop at baseline compliance, it gets into full talent management to standardize the capability across the whole department.
Yep.
So that's really where we want to be able to kind of change the storyline of we're not just checking boxes anymore. We're actually trying to give you all the tools, resources to build your programs inside of the department to be able to kind of grow people in the careers inside of and be able to kind of maneuver them and surge them when we need them across the board.
Well, and one thing I think is really important to talk about is the careers. So when I think of 8570, I think of it very broad.
Yep.
I'm a cyber person. But what makes, I think, 8140 special, and if you don't mind talking about some of the work roles that are out there, because I think it's exciting how you've now split that up.
Yeah. So it when we started looking at the various levels, you look at the very broad scopes of the aux series 2210s. They have some kind of criteria, but they're very broad in their areas. You can kind of fit a lot of the work that people do in cyber inside of any job inside of 2210s. 8570 went a little deeper, went from technology, managerial, those types of things. But work roles get into specialties. It starts getting into the day-to-day jobs that everyone does inside of your work sections. You can go into operations centers. You can go into network defense areas. You can go into IT infrastructure. We're able to kind of identify the work roles through knowledge and skills of what those people do on a day-to-day basis. You can look at cyber defense analysts. You can look at like ISSMs. You can look at all of the areas of security architects. If you go in there, don't necessarily get hung up on the terminology of the name. Everyone kind of looks at those and really kind of hones in. Look at the knowledge and skills. You might not call that, you might not identify as that naming convention, but the knowledge and skills identify exactly what you do.
Sure.
So I implore everyone to kind of dive deeper into the framework. I know it's a daunting task. We're trying to get tools and resources to kind of get you to understand the framework a little better of what we're trying to talk to. But it is a tool so that all people inside of the environment can ultimately kind of leverage it, resource it to build their various training paths and things.
I mean, in some ways, I use the analogy of a doctor versus nobody's just a doctor. You're an endocrinologist, you're a pediatrician. And what you've done is you've kind of defined what those definitions are. Is that a fair?
Yeah, it's I love your analogy. I also utilize it too. I kind of two different ones. Everyone goes to undergrad as a doctorate. You then branch off into neuroscience versus cardiologist versus other areas. That's what we're doing here. Another analogy I use is the tree trunk. Everyone's cybersecurity. Every branch starts specializing into those areas, and the leaves turns into knowledge and skills. So individuals can start, kind of looking in that tree of life. There you go.
Very Lion-ish.
Very, to be able to understand that you start specializing into your skill set. But also what I want to kind of point out is that all of that still connects back to the tree roots. Is everyone has backbones and connective aspects of STEM in their background, areas that kind of maneuver through IT, cybersecurity, AI, data. You are never going to be stagnant inside of just one side of element. So don't get you know disgruntled or anything in that you can't maneuver through your career. We're trying to build tools right now that can show you how closely you align, where you are, you don't have enough knowledge and skills. You can take things like a GIAC or SANS course or a CompTIA course or something that individuals can kind of maneuver through to get that requisite knowledge base to kind of maneuver in your career. So
And it's interesting because I believe this is always evolving, and I'd love to talk about that a little bit of like where you see 8140. Like, if I'm correct, AI, for example, something that you're now starting to incorporate.
Yep.
And I'd love for you to talk a little bit more of like cloud, and because, it's very much the belief over here at SANS that these jobs, if you're not doing them on a daily basis, you could become stale as soon as 6 months.
Yep.
And so, how are you keeping up with all these changes that are forever going on in this industry, and how you're keeping 8140?
yeah, we're constantly. So this is one of those. I have a quarterly engagements with our operational individuals, making sure we understand the current landscape, but also talking to industry, talking to providers. Where is the new emerging technology? Where are the new areas? As you mentioned, the DCWF didn't want to stay very siloed in just cybersecurity. We wanted to show the connective aspect because all the talent comes from the same place. Like I mentioned before, STEM backgrounds, but they can maneuver into IT, cybersecurity, cyber ops. Now we've broadened that scope into AI, data science, software engineering. We're going to go into areas like spectrum. We go into areas possibly down the road of quantum, other engineering functional areas inside of it. Mostly is that the usability capability of what the BCWF can do. People are starting to see the usefulness of it. They want to be able to leverage that and understand and put it into databases to show the capability of what their workforce is and identification. So that's where we're going to be partnering with a lot of functional communities inside of the department just to be able to grow that so that we can all talk the same language. That's really what the lexicon is huge. If we are on the same page and going in the same direction, we can communicate with our industry partners to make sure that we're all telling the same story.
So sometimes people always say, "So what's the difference between the DCWF and the NICE framework?"
Yep.
Are they the same, or they branch off from each other? Like, how do they fit together?
Yeah. So, and this is some of the storylines. We worked hand in hand with a nice organization back in the 2016, 2017 timeframe, worked with our federal partners. We built both of the frameworks at the same time. We branched off of the department to make the DCWF a department focused.
Sure.
We have our stakeholders. That's our first customer base. So we got to make sure that it kind of scopes to that. The NICE framework is kind of represented in our cybersecurity element inside of the DCWF. We always partner with the NICE team, making sure that we send our updated operational areas, make sure we send our content to them so that they can kind of update their knowledge and skills to stay kind of in compliance. But always communication, collaboration, making sure that everyone's involved. At the end of the day, our stakeholders in the department are our number one customer base. So we've got to make sure that we're responsive, agile, and flexible to them to make sure that what's being codified in the framework is accurate to what they do. So,
Well, and I believe even from the start, we've increased the amount of roles, if I'm correct, from something in the 60s to now something in the 70s. I think we're up to 73.
yeah, I have a long history. So I'll go back even farther. The original conception of all of this was out of the CNO roadmap, which was 11 work roles back in the early 2000s. So it predates a lot of these things. The NICE framework originally had 52 work roles. The DWF had 54. We had some sensitive work roles. Now we're up to 74. We actually just added one today at our
Did you announce it here at RSA?
It's been announced that we do have now a reflective red team specialist inside of the DCWF. So if you are a red teamer, please go identify and code in accordance. But we wanted to,
Which is our crowd.
yes. So yeah, this is one of those things that is very valuable as the DCWF expands. Is we go to conferences, we go to engagements,
Uh-huh.
and now that people are seeing the applicability of what it can do, they're starting to approach us about coming and getting a presence in the DCWF. The red team, NSA red teams, specifically came to us afterwards and said, we don't see ourselves. We want to make sure that we annotate
Sure.
that. So we worked with them over about 4 months and got them a presence in the framework. And now their people on their teams can go code.
Which I really appreciate, because sometimes one of the complaints that you hear out there is, hey, if you want to know what a plumber does, you have to ask a plumber, right? If you want to know what a red teamer does, you have to ask a red teamer.
Yeah.
Right. So I appreciate it. You're going out and reaching out to the NSA and whoever is the specialist that's out there in those various fields.
Yeah, I will never say that I am the SME or the I have a background in cybersecurity, but I will never advocate and say that I have an expertise.
Well, and I think it's fair to say nobody's ever an expert in
No.
because cybersecurity becomes just so big now. We have specialists in many areas, but nobody's a specialist in everything.
Yeah, and that's
So
those where we do a lot of facilitation. This is not a, we snap our fingers and all of a sudden work roles are created. It's a 6 to 9 month process where we engage with a lot of SMEs. We go across the whole department. We talk to every avenue we can possibly do to make sure we're grasping the right content. We're bringing the right SMEs to the table and getting the right knowledge and skills out of it.
So let me ask, people always ask me all the time, I want to be able to meet 8140, but I don't know what I need to do. Like, what are the steps of, and I know that's some of the stuff that we've talked about to try to simplify the process, try to make it
Yep.
a little bit simpler. But do you mind talking a little bit about like how you envision, like, okay, how do I become compliant? And I'm going to ask you from the individual, and then I'll ask you from the leader, and then I'm going to ask you from the contractor, because the contractors, as you can imagine, are kind of standing there going, what do I need to do?
Right. No, it's a fair question. And this is one of those areas where the first thing that I will always tell, doesn't matter if it's the person or the hiring manager, is go find your PD, go find your
MOS?
MOS rating, AFSC. Make sure you understand what you're coded to. Make sure you understand what work role you're identified in to make sure it's correct. Have an understanding of what those knowledge and skills are so you can take part in building your profile inside of it. And then you can articulate and have that dialogue, because it should not just be the hiring manager, the HR person putting you in some three code in accordance with DCWF. It should be you on a day-to-day basis to make sure you're correctly identified, because you're the one that has to be you have to be qualified in certifications, training, education.
Sure.
So you're going to be the one that is held responsible. So you might as well grasp it's your job, it's your career. Understand that, grab those things and make sure you're coded correctly, and then start building it out. You can look inside of the DCWF. We've got resources on our DISA Cyber Exchange where you can actually get an understanding of the 74 work roles inside of the framework. What are the knowledge and skills? Start building out yourself, your profile, to make sure you're accurately reporting all that.
Sure. So sometimes one of the big questions I always get is, so I know I have to be 8140 compliant, but I also have done JQRs for the last decade or two.
Yep.
How are the two intertwined? What's the future? What's the past? Because as you well know, the Marines have their own JQRs. The Army have their own JQRs.
Yep.
So I'm a little bit confused of, will a JQR meet 8140? Will an 8140 meet a JQR? Where does one step in and one step out?
Yeah, and that's the collaboration that we have to do between us and the services.
Mhm.
Is everyone, when people say JQRs, JQSs, IDPs, everyone has terminology for a certain thing. We need to standardize that. We're working with everyone in the environment to make sure that we put out a standardized form, but most likely they are going to be in what we're actually intending for JQRs in the environment.
Sure.
Because service members do a wonderful job of codifying exactly what they need to do. Because back to cyber is one of those, you're touching networks, you're touching infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Never going to give you the keys of the kingdom to be able to just go on there and do a patch. They're going to make sure that you're capable of doing it. And those things have to be documented somewhere. That's what we mean by a JQR. It's part of the 8140 program.
Mhm.
You have to send that and report it up to us to make sure that we kind of have those green lights to make sure you're in compliance. But we want to make sure it's accurately reporting. It's actually identifying exactly what you want to do, because we don't want to put extra burden on you. You have a not hard enough job already doing this. So we got to make sure that we are working with them as much as we can to standardize it.
So I look at my position description or PD. So I figured I would just, in case somebody didn't know what a PD was.
Yeah.
Um, Now I look at that and I go, okay, I know what my 3-digit code is.
Yep.
Now, how do I go ahead and make sure I'm compliant with that 3-digit code? Like, what are my options? Like, where do I turn to for resources? How do I know where I can go?
Yeah, very good question. It's so inside of a PD, we're talking civilians, position descriptions. You have the 3-digit code. Go find your quals matrix inside of the Distance Cyber Exchange. You have a Excel sheet there. You'll have ability to look at that work role and find where you need to qualify yourself against, what certifications, what training are deemed acceptable to be able to qualify against. You're identifying all this, and then what JQRs eventually will meet the criteria for that as well.
Sure.
So we're trying to give you, I've mentioned it before, Distance Cyber Exchange is a great resource. Go there, you'll find all the updated content and give you all the resources we possibly can to tell these storylines.
Now, can I go to a military schoolhouse
You can.
and meet the requirements?
Yep. So
Um,
you can do inside of 8140, you can do certifications, we can do training, you can do education, you can do experience, you can do military schoolhouse training. Basically, the whole premise behind 8140 is that there's so many people inside of this environment. When I talk about the total force, it's civilian, military, contractors. We're talking 200 plus thousand people just in cybersecurity and IT. When you start talking AI, data, software engineering, probably add another 200,000. So we're getting into the 500,000.
wow, those many people here this week at RSA.
It's exactly. Yes, that feels like it over there. But there is tons of avenues, and we're trying to give you all the tools and all the great resources that our training and certification providers, and make you aware of it. What we don't want to do is do a lot of siloed things. When I travel a lot of these military bases, they have a lot of great training courses, but not everyone's aware of them. So we got to make sure people are aware of everything that's in the environment. And that's where that calls matrix will do kind of what we call an 8140 repository of all the great stuff that's being kind of produced for us.
Now, you always get people who say, I've been in digital forensics for 10 years plus.
Yep.
Can my work experience, can I validate myself through that? Or do I still need to go through a certain process?
Yep. So we established a experience SOP. It's also in the Distance Cyber Exchange. If you're not familiar with it, go find that one. Basically, what your service or unit will end up doing is putting a board together where they will actually be able to kind of have a grouping of your peers, evaluate your content, evaluate your experience, and give you kind of the ability to qualify that way. We know there's a lot of great individuals that have been doing this for 15, 20, 30 years. We don't want to discredit that, especially in the new developing areas. Cybersecurity, because of 8570, we've had a lot of this already.
Sure.
We built the baseline, but other areas like IT, cyber ops, AI, data have not. So we have a lot of growth to do. As I always mention, Rome is not built in a day. It's going to take a decade to do. We have to be patient and be able to kind of build these buildings a lot.
So, say I have work experience, but I haven't done it in the last couple of years, maybe like last 2 or 3.
Yeah.
How does that, am I okay? Or like how soon, what is the recycle? Like how soon do you want to make sure that somebody,
Yeah. So, again, a lot of these things are codified in the SOP. But what we like to feel is cyber is a ever-changing environment. If you're anywhere from 9 to 12 months out of the job, you're
Okay,
kind of
that makes sense.
you're almost out of the loop. So you need to go back and start understanding that area. If you're in a current job, and I know military individuals transition all the time, make sure you get those resources. Tell that story to your supervisors. They're aware of it because they need to be able to put people in the butts in the seats to make sure they're meeting the requirement of filling the spaces. So they're going to make sure that you get the training. Just have that communication. It's a constant area between you, hiring managers, supervisors, your military service organizations to tell that story because they've put a lot of equity already in you. They might as well keep building your knowledge base.
Sure. So now moving on to a little bit of the leader. So I'm into true. I've met the requirements. I'm assuming I go to my supervisor.
Yeah.
What does my supervisor do with that information? How do I make sure that that is now hopefully funneling up to you?
Right.
Right. So what are the steps? What are the places that get you there?
Yeah. So it's a constant area where you need to build the package. Your supervisor needs to be aware of the areas with making sure that they're working with their hiring managers, their HR organizations. As I always say, inside of an organization, your one shops, your three shops, your six shops. And if you're not familiar with them, your one shops are usually your HR shops. Three is usually ops. Six is usually your CIOs. They all need to be in this constant communication to be able to funnel those packages and making sure they put into their various systems. Right now, your manpower personnel systems do the identification of the work roles. They do the 3-digit code, but they don't do the full package. They don't do the whole LMS systems that you need to be able to report readiness on your workforce. Each service has a responsibility to build those right now. So they're working diligently to do that. I can tell you, not a lot of them are there yet. So once they do, you will be aware, the supervisors will be aware how to do all those areas. So we'll build it from there.
So in some ways, it's the manpower person. Am I correct?
Yep.
That is really the one that's reporting up to you.
Yeah, they're the ones that are physically putting it in the system. But I also want to kind of advocate is it should not be onus on them, the manpower person, to do it. It you from the person needs to take onus of your things to push it to your supervisor, to your hire, to make sure everything's sharing. So it's a constant partnership between everyone inside the hiring process.
So let me move on to contractors a little bit.
All right.
Because so one of the things that came out of 8570 is people would call and say, I followed up with my program manager and they didn't know what to do. And I know I need to be compliant. So I'm turning to you with hopefully some answers,
Right.
which is probably not the right place to go. But I'm trying to, because contractors are always trying to say, hey, I want to be compliant, but sometimes I don't know where to go.
Yep.
And whose responsibility is it? Is the program manager? Like one of the things I said, and I don't know if this is correct or not, so I please, tell me if I didn't, is I always said, develop a plan to submit to your program manager, see if your program manager would sign off on it.
Right. So I'll tell you and we made some headway. Currently, the 8140 is a total force effort. It is military, civilian, and contractors. We are currently going through the process to update the DFARS to make sure that we can start tracking the contractors the same way we do with military and civilians. Everyone has to go through the same program. We're closer to that. We have a memo on the table right now that's going through the staffing to get signed. You will probably see that in 25 at some point. From there, my team will develop an implementation plan to push out to all of the stakeholders, service and fourth estate, to start working in that direction. The people that are going to be the ones kind of on the tap are the contracting representatives, the cores, the KOs. They're going to have to go and start working to update their PWSs, do mods on their contracts to make 8140 as a presence in there. As a contracting official, you are ultimately going to be responsible for reporting those things in the contracting official area. So you can start working in that area officially where it's not a mandate right now because the DFARS has not been changed. It is not modified. The resources are out there. You can kind of see it's not an if, it's a when. We're working in that area to kind of give the best information to everyone. And then hopefully within the next couple months, we'll start working towards getting that into the system.
So you always hear from contractors, do I have 6 months? Do I have a year? I'm worried that I'm not going to be compliant or my DFAR gets updated and that literally that day I have to be 100% compliant.
Yep.
So there's a lot of confusion, I think, in the marketplace. If you don't mind explaining a little bit of,
Yeah.
okay, so my DFAR gets updated. What's next?
Yep. Rest assured, it's not going to be 3 months. It's not going to be 6 months. Right now, my team, we're putting an implementation plan. So once that DFARS update memo gets signed, we can start moving towards it. What I'm looking at right now is giving 12 months to the contracting officials to update their PWSs, making sure that the wording and verbiage is all correct. And then from there, another 12 months to 18 months for the contractors to be in compliance with that and start reporting it. So we're looking anywhere from 24
Okay.
to about 30 months before contractors, once the DFARS memos and everything gets signed.
So one thing that's always interesting that I experienced with 8570 was, okay, say I met the requirement and say I only need to be at a maybe intermediate level. It may be to my advantage to do the advance.
Yep.
Because then that way I can meet as I progress my career, even if I start off in basic. Any thoughts about that? Or is that something people should consider? Or if I'm supposed to go for basic, I should only go for basic and then continue? Or, hey, I'm somebody who's excels at my career
Yep.
and I want to automatically go for that advanced category. Is that anything wrong with that?
No, I mean, all of that is, again, it's completely up to your experience level. I don't want to ever advocate and say, always shoot for the top. Some people are never, might not ever meet those types of criteria. And in the current job, they will never have to. So always look at what the content is and see how it aligns. And then start maneuvering through those things to make sure that you can be in and meet the criteria, pass the certifications, pass the training
Sure.
to make sure you do it. But if you are a high exceller, if you want to go for those higher certifications, at the end of the day, the baseline foundations is we're identifying those to make sure people have the aptitude. They're going to come in and they're better prepared to meet the JQRs and pass the JQRs and all the hard stuff that's inside of the department. That's what we're looking for. So if we have a high, person that is very capable of passing all of the certifications, and that's what we want. That's where we want to kind of identify and bring them in.
Sure.
And then might open up their doors. You can qualify for other positions. You can maneuver through your career much quicker. So I will never say it's a bad thing, but I also don't want to advocate and say always shoot for the top because at some point your experience might not be there.
Well, you always hear a little bit. So, and this is true of certifications. I will throw out there, people are always nervous, right? Because nobody wants to fail, right? So, what are the resources? What are the options that are out there for that person who's really concerned that they're just like they want to do the right thing, but they're just scared that, oh, what happens if I look bad on this? Like,
Right.
what will happen to me?
Nothing. I mean, so this is one of those where we are always advocating for resourcing things to kind of grow in their career. If you are in a current job right now and you don't have a certification, you don't have a training, there's tons of avenues to qualify against. We want to make sure that we give you all the avenues to do that. So always reach out to your hiring managers, your supervisors to make sure you get those resources. At the end of the day, we want to make sure you're in the right fit though. So if you're not capable of passing those jobs, those areas, maybe that is not necessarily the career you want to go or would excite you. So we can start finding other areas or we can get you the resources to get spun up on that current area. But
Now, what's interesting is I always look at DoD as a kind of an incubator in a lot of industries. Like I think of pilots, for example. right? Where the aviation industry came from Department of Defense.
Yep.
Do you see a correlation in cyber with DoD kind of being an advocate for that? Or
Yeah.
what do you
In this current landscape right now, with a lot of the, you know, 2, 3, 4 year individuals jumping in and out of careers, progressing through, we have a lot of high turnover areas, especially in critical work roles,
sure?
inside of it. We are not afraid of that. Um, we want to provide the best resources for all of our individuals. Military schoolhouses do a wonderful job of bringing resources up. And when they're done with their military time, if they go off to industry, it's a great avenue for industry partners because we're doing a lot of collaboration with, the DoD, goes out to the DIB and goes out to the industry stakeholders, Microsoft, all of those areas.
Sure.
So we're always making sure that we're having this common domain, common talk. So it's never a bad thing for us when we do it, but we always want to try to bring as much talent back as possible, and then try to get them spun up in an apartment and have that constant, back and forth between the various partners.
So one thing you always hear about cybersecurity is I'm a little bit afraid about training people because they're going to walk out the door.
Yep.
And so if I don't train them, I don't have to worry about them leaving. And so I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts, especially as DOD. And it was interesting. Like the other day, I was at the gym and I talked to an individual who went through school for cyber.
Yeah.
And he said the smartest thing I did is I went into Department of Defense. He said I ended up going into the Navy. And he says, I'm now in hindsight, I realized how great that was. And I got my experience being in the Navy. And then I came out and I was that much more valuable, but I wouldn't have been nearly that valuable if I just gotten the degree.
Right.
So I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts because that's always, you hear that pretty much across the board of, hey, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing that I train people?
It's so I the department, the services, the stakeholders do a wonderful job of setting up training pipelines, giving ample amount of time for people to practice their skill set. We have a lot of specialized areas in the department, in various cyber defense, cybersecurity, IT. So there's a lot of mechanisms for us to be able to get our individuals trained and get there. And we're constantly going through training. We want to make sure that they're constantly up to date in areas. Sometimes industry partners don't have that, availability to be able to maneuver individuals off or training.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
department has a lot of individuals inside of their environment, so we have the availability to do that. So it's one of those that I don't think it's a bad thing to get training ever. You always want to keep the best, brightest minds up with the consistent platforms and tools and resources. Um, we sometimes get the pushback just because of operational demand.
Sure.
Is how do we maneuver if there's a critical aspect? Sometimes people don't see why we can't send them over, but when we do get that lower actual time during the operational, you know, swale or whatever you want to call it, it gives us time to be able to send people over to train. So training dollars are always there. We go through the resourcing to make sure we put it in programming guides, services, stakeholders, everyone inside of the environment does it. So we want to make sure we are giving the availability to our people as much.
No, it's always interesting because, okay, say like a DoD person, we build them up, they've been fantastic. You have such an important mission, like you're literally protecting the country. Now that person goes off and they get this amazing job at, I don't know, Microsoft, Cisco, Google.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about that? And does that individual potentially still have a home at DoD?
Yeah.
Because you also hear stories of people say, hey, I moved on, but I'm always going to be a DoD person. Like once I'm in for life. So I'd love to kind of, and hopefully I'm not leaning into that, but that's something I always hear of, hey, once I'm in the military, I'm always in the military. Like that part of me never goes away.
Yeah.
So
And it's a lot of the same things of you grow up in that environment, you're used to it. and military person, I was former military, you get very passionate about the mission. But I understand going off to industry, going to your Cisco's, your Microsofts, your other areas. Um, and that really helps it helps the department.
Sure.
It also helps industry. We're growing the defense. As I mentioned, cyber is a global domain. It adversaries can go across the board no matter where you're at. And we have so many networks that we have to defend. And we do so much partnership with a lot of industry as well. So if their networks
True.
are, degraded, then guess what? When they bridge into the DoD, they can also be degraded. So we got to make sure the best and the brightest talent. Cybersecurity is one of those massive things. It's never going away. It's just going to grow. That's one of those things that
Yeah, I love it because it's job security.
I know. You have to understand that it in this current environment, people are going to constantly, jump around from jobs to jobs.
Sure.
Would we love everyone in the department to stay in the department? Yes, but that's not a realistic in this current environment.
Mhm.
And if we allow and open up the areas for people to maneuver back and forth, then we've got a wonderful area where we can leverage the experience that they get over in industry,
Sure.
their knowledge base. They see it a different way. They have different tools. They can bring that level of knowledge to the department and help us with our mission.
Well, it's one of the things I've always seen is the National Guard, where they can come back into a National Guard kind of philosophy. I don't know what your thoughts are on that,
No,
but I even some of the SANS instructors fall in that category where they still want to be able to give back to DoD, and that's a way that allows them to still, as they would say, go back home.
yeah. No, I think the guards members, the reservists are wonderful resources for the department, especially in current times. You never know when you're going to need surge capability. And then you can also, back to leveraging their knowledge base, they can go off to your various industry resources, um, understand how they're doing it, and then bring that knowledge base to the department. And then we can change some of our mission. Maybe we're not doing it the best. We're not doing it
Sure.
the most accurate. They can give that to us to be able to better it. So
Well, in some ways, I look at it as it's fantastic. They learn from DoD, they go into corporate, and if they bring that knowledge back and those skills back to DoD, it's a kind of a full circle.
yeah, it's
But
it's a win for everyone.
but also in turn, those organizations are US companies
Yep.
that keep us going with the economy. They keep us going for many, many reasons.
They do, and that's one of those. Like I mentioned, cyber is a growing area. Uh, you have to think as the department is just like any other industry provider. It maneuvers through it. There's tons of jobs there. There's tons
Sure.
of jobs in industry. People inside of going through academic, universities areas
Mhm.
need to understand those progressions. I go to various universities all the time. I ask people what they want to do in cybersecurity. Nobody knows. They just say, "I want to do cybersecurity." Well, you understand the specialties, understand the
Yeah.
areas inside of it. That's one thing that the department has that the industry doesn't is we have the numbers to be able to specialize and get more fine tuned in our defense of networks. Industry has to be more generalized. Unless you're a bigger company, some of them have to have kind of overlap.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, like, I did a presentation a couple months ago, and it was for people new to cyber. And they said, "Hey, I got the degree. I was really excited. I came out and I kept hearing how there was this 5 million, 5 billion shortage of workers, and I can't find a job.
Yep.
And I don't know what I did wrong
Yeah.
or why I can't." So, I mean, I'm kind of curious of your thoughts on
Yeah.
that.
I've been asked this a couple times, talking to university students, talking to individuals younger, because it's a common thread. Is the problem is a lot of people want experience.
Yeah.
So what I always advocate for is while you're in universities or you're brand new to the workforce, go to ranges, go to competitions, go to challenges, go to areas where you can get this hands-on experience.
But DoD is a
Yep.
amazing place to get that experience.
It is. And that's one of those, we've got internships, we've got apprenticeships.
Plus, you got a brand name.
We do. It is. And if you can go through and actually advocate, I worked on this with the department, that's has some weight behind it. So always, while there's wonderful tools and resources from industry, academia, always get more hands-on, go to the various things to get that experience because that's what people are looking
Well, I think saying I worked at Cyber Command, that sticks out
Yep.
anybody that looks at a resume and goes, now I'm really interested in that person. They may not be able to tell me what they did,
for.
but I know that that person, because I guess I look at that. I know I mentioned aviation, but medical's another one where DoD kind of was the lead. If you go back to history,
Yep.
was kind of the lead. And I don't know if it's fair to say, but a lot of what you're doing today is doing the same thing DoD has done for what, 100 years now?
Yep.
Just now in this cool, very evolving, still very young industry called cyber, if that's fair to say.
It is, and that's a lot of the kind of direction. Just because back to the numbers and things, we have some flexibility in being able to kind of shape the future in various functional areas, medical, aviation. We try to kind of push the envelope with cyber right now. So hopefully we're doing it right. Do we have all the answers? No. By no means do we have.
So nobody does.
But that's why I love the constant collaboration, coming to conferences, coming to engagements where you can talk to all the experts and bring back that requisite knowledge base to help build your programs
Sure.
and really make it better in the future.
Well, and I appreciate your time today. So I kind of wanted to, if there was some final thoughts that we didn't quite get in there, but I wanted to especially kind of focus a little bit about what the benefits were, how I implement, why anyone, of course, the big question everybody asks is, how does it help me?
Right. Oh, it's always a very good question. The question of what do I get out of this?
Sure.
And I think this is one of those where we're trying to give the storyline to the people to understand what we're looking for. It's standardizing it across the department. We're trying to give them this blueprint to say, here's your career, here's your current profession, here's how you can connect to other careers, and this is how you go about aligning to trainings, to certifications, to academia, those types of things. What ultimately in the side of it, I mentioned it before, the rest of the department is currently understanding this capability of identifying things. So you're going to see a lot of this similar concept being leveraged in other areas inside our department as well, building various frameworks, building various mechanisms to identify. So I think it gives you a wonderful blueprint to not only advocate for yourself right now, but then build your storyline throughout, putting the right requisite knowledge base, and then applying for jobs. When you can actually tell the story on there, you're going to get a much higher salary. You're going to get a much higher areas inside of that that's going to aid you in the future.
Well, and I love to tell you, I mean, that was a true story that just happened a week ago where somebody said, the best thing I ever did was not get a job straight out of college, was to go into the military, and how that really helped my career. And so I really like to think there's some things with 8140 that really can help across the board. I always think of those NSA red teamers that you mentioned, right? Saying you're an NSA red teamer. But what's interesting is so many people love that mission so much. A lot of times they ended up back at NSA even after they left because it was just, they love the environment. Ultimately, if you'd ask them why they did it, it's because they said, I could have so much more fun at DoD doing my job than I could anywhere else. Yeah. So I don't know if that's a fair statement to make, but I've heard that multiple times.
It is. And this is the unfortunate things of, telling the storyline of all the really cool missions that the department has, all the capabilities, all the platforms and tools that we get to leverage that aren't necessarily across the board inside of industry. And sometimes we do not a great job of telling the community of what you can do. kind of doing that socialization, that marketing aspect. But if you're not aware, please come talk to us. We can show you a lot of those areas. That will be able to. I'm I'm a former cyber command for a decade. I could tell you so many stories of all the cool operations and things that I've seen. In the 3-story football screen TVs of people doing operations. That is just a cool environment that people across
It's like 0 day come to life.
yeah, it is. It is a lot of the minority report cool stuff. So um, there is industry. There's tons of people that have those capabilities as well. But the department is a really cool community, and there's a lot of maneuverability throughout it.
Well, and that's, yeah, I may make more money in the financial industry, but I'm not going to have nearly as much fun. Like I've heard that multiple times of friends that I mean, I've been in this industry 25 years.
Yeah.
And I've seen that multiple times where people say, but darn, that mission was just so great over there.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, did you have any final thoughts? Or that could be the final thought of, hey, why should this matter to me?
Right.
There you go. If there's one thing that's out there.
That definitely should be one of them. I will always advocate. If you're not familiar with it, reach out, go to the Distance Cyber Exchange. We have resources, emails there. Reach out to us. We'll answer the questions. Talk to your supervisors, talk to your hiring managers. They're the ones that should be understanding this. As we progress through this 8140 storyline, it's going to get better and better and better each year as we do it.
Sure.
We're at the beginning stages. We just went through the first advocation or the first qualification of 8140. So we're just at the beginning stage. So take a breath, everyone. Don't worry as much, and we'll get through this. So,
well, and it was interesting. So one of the facts that you're going to realize here on Thursday. So when we did the study, one of the questions that was out there is, are directives, are these mandates, are these work roles affecting how you're doing hiring?
Yep.
And I'll admit we were a little bit nervous about including that question just because we thought the number was going to be low.
Yeah.
People saying that they're using now to build job recs was 65%. People are saying that it's influencing their hiring practices, 40%. I'll be honest, and you may not, I thought that number was going to come in at like 10. And I would have thought, okay, we're going to build that as the years go on and at 10. Yeah. I never thought we were going to start at 40. And you could argue 40's, it's only 40%. It's not 80%.
Yeah.
But I was shocked knowing that 8140 is still brand new, and still some of the other things that are out there are still brand new. So in some ways, I always say our industry is maturing. If you want to look at the future of our industry, just look at other industries, and we're following the exact same path.
Yeah.
It's just we're still a very young industry that's evolving and maturing over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a shocking number to me. I would go in my early stages of 2020 when I talked about BCWF and 8140, I would get about 5% of the people raising their hands. And now we're into the 60s and 70s. But that is a great news story that I might actually use. Yeah, we're in the 60s, sort of PDs and work roles and all of those stories.
Yeah, so that's a preview that nobody has seen the results. Actually, you've seen the report because we send you an early copy. But I'll admit, we went back and forth when we were developing the study because we said, oh, this number is probably not going to be a good number. So maybe we shouldn't include it.
No.
But then when we got the results,
yeah,
we were surprised what those results were.
Yeah, people are starting to grasp and understand it and then take it their own. This is one of those programs. It's a full talent management. It's for you guys to be able to leverage and use and build your own. So
sure.
This is one of those, it will be developing and changing over time. We are not perfect right now. Trust me. But
nobody's ever perfect.
But we will constant be, as I mentioned, flexible. We're going to be listening to the customer base and understand it, change it, and modify it to make sure it's a better tool down the road.
Well, hey, I do appreciate your time today.
Yeah.
And this was a great discussion. and hopefully you enjoyed this. I love always talking about 8140 and just kind of getting out what the real mission is, why it's important, why it matters to people. And so thank you for your time today.
I appreciate you guys having me. And again, talking to all the wonderful individuals that are leveraging this. So thank you for all of the help that you do and your collaboration with
Oh, thank you.